Lead. Pressure points everywhere tonight, and it is thrilling. Everything that can apply to a Game 7 applies here. And then you add on the inconceivability of how Game 6 finished up. Miami's so close they could taste it. Derek White's season-saving putback. And everything that made it possible with the moments before it. But before we get to tonight, 3 hours from tip-off of Game 7, let's look back for a second. Bill Plaschke, how might Game 6 affect tonight's Game 7? Do you believe in carryover?
How can it not carry over, Tony? We're talking about it 2 days later. Everybody's talking about it 2 days later. The players have to be thinking about it 2 days later. The Heat were one tick from going to the NBA Finals. They were beaten on a hustle play, which is their kind of mantra. A hustle play beat them. They were beaten even though Jimmy Butler thought he had saved them. They were spent. They thought they had the game won. How does it not carry over? After the game, Jason Tatum said he's never looked forward to anything as much as he's looked forward to going back to Boston for Game 7. The city's going to be on fire. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be nuts. Yes, Game 6 will carry over. It'll be part of Game 7.
Frank Isola, do you believe in carryover?
Yeah, Bill conveniently leaving out the part about Boston being 5-5 at home in the playoffs. For most teams, I would believe it. I don't believe for this team. My only thing about Miami, if you go back to that game, that's an epic game, but that's a gut punch for them. But Jimmy Butler's sitting there saying one more stop. Well, Jimmy, if it's one stop, why aren't you trying to shut down Jason Tatum by yourself? And Eric Spoelstra, you're double-teaming Tatum, and you're leaving Derek White open to get that tap. And I know this, if the roles were reversed and Joe Mazzulla had done that, that would be his last bowl of clam chowder in Massachusetts. They would kick him right out of the city. So from that standpoint, they blew it. But Miami, the experience there, because of Eric Spoelstra and the toughness of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I don't think the carryover will be the same as it was for Philadelphia when they blew it in the last 4 minutes of Game 6 in Philly in the second.
Okay, so you don't really believe carryover applies to you. Courtney Cronin, I saw you shaking your head no when Frank was talking.
I'm a big believer in momentum and a big believer that it's hard to put the air back in the balloon after it's been let out. And this was a close loss for the Miami Heat in the final moments. It wasn't like the two blowouts in Game 4 and Game 5. And frankly, think about how defeating this is when the Celtics shot worse than a Miami team that was shooting pretty poorly in Game 6. They had a season-low 7 threes. Outside of Marcus Smart and Derek White, everybody else in the Celtics went 0 for 17 from 3. The Heat had 7 more threes, 7 fewer turnovers, and they still end up losing in Game 6. And the amount of pressure that's on this Miami Heat team as heavy underdogs going to Boston. I know that Jimmy Butler likes to channel his Mark Messier and his Joe Namath, but maybe don't guarantee that you're going to win games because that only adds more unnecessary pressure onto this team than you already have.
Wow, it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you sound like this is a wrap, that Miami can't recover after what happened Saturday night, Courtney.
Strange how quickly. I very much believe that.
And Kevin Blackistone.
Well, the way I look at the end of Game 6 is I look at Jimmy Butler and the fact that he had 24 points in that game, but he had 13 of those 24 in the last 5 minutes to give the Heat a 1-point lead with 3 seconds to go, which unfortunately for the Heat allowed Derek to do what Derek did. So I look at the fact that if Jimmy Butler was held under wraps a little bit for a couple of games, that he got his mojo back. And he has found a way to pull this team through. And think about it. This is really, talk about mantra, this is the mantra of this whole Heat team. 44 wins on the season, 8 seed, lucky to be in the playoffs. Continue to drag themselves to victory after victory, and now have this opportunity.
Wait, hold on a second. You view this as an opportunity. So you think the carryover from a Game 6 loss was that Miami was close to winning?
Absolutely, they were close to winning. Not only were they close to winning, you just pointed it out. They had it won up until a split-second putback by Derek White. Which was a great play. But here's the other part of this, right? I mean, this is a team that really has outplayed the Celtics throughout this playoffs. When you look at field goal percentage, when you look at fewer turnovers, I mean, they just played a better game. And as Frank pointed out, their role players have even played better.
This is what I love about you, Professor Blackistone. Stone. This is our 21st year doing this show. And your takeaway from Game 6 on a loss, that's like, it's an all-time moment, right? I mean, whether you blame them for the loss or not, but it's a gut punch, and you're like, it's a good thing they lost because now they have the carryover. Plashke, respond to that.
KB, you're making my point for me. You're saying they had the game won. That's it. They had the game won. They had it won. They had it snatched away from them. What happens after a gut punch? What does somebody do after a gut punch? They collapse. They fall on the floor. They don't get up. This was a gut punch. They won't get up.
I sold it back to you.
The last time we saw a play like that in Miami, that's Ray Allen hitting that three in the NBA Finals. But remember, that game was in Miami. But to Kevin's point, how does Boston blow that lead late in the game? They're up 10 with under 4 minutes to go. They make so many mistakes, whether it's missing free throws. They gave Miami never should have had a lead. They did, and they were this close to eliminating Boston.
The last word.
I know that Jimmy Butler likes to channel his Mark Messier and his Joe Namath, but maybe don't guarantee that you're going to win games, because that only adds more unnecessary pressure onto this team than you already have.
Wow, it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you sound like this is a wrap, that Miami can't recover after what happened Saturday night, Courtney.
Strange how quickly I very much believe that.
Only after they had won 3 straight games to start this series. So it was a Game 7. They stand eye to eye with history, and they did not blink. The Heat are going to the NBA Finals.
That's it. They had the game won. They had it won. They had it snatched away from them. What happens after a gut punch? What does somebody do after a gut punch? They collapse. They fall on the floor. They don't get up. This was a gut punch.